Hi everyone, today we're going to get into the last archetype of the series, which is the Nurturer. Now first, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please do that. Click on the bell, select all, and you will receive notifications whenever I upload new content. Now I want to start this episode off in a very similar way that I started the last couple of episodes, and that's by looking at the concept of archetypes as a whole, going deeper into it, and then we'll take a look at the Nurturer itself a little bit later on. So I have mentioned in the last episodes that each archetype can be seen as having its own voice, its own goals and desires. So the warrior is more focused on achieving things, the lover is more focused on connecting with people, etc. And I also explained how these archetypes kind of balance each other out. The magician might go on about something and the warrior will bring it down to earth and say, okay, that's a cool concept. How are we going to do this practically? So they kind of balance each other out. And if it's not properly developed, it can't balance it out. And then that side takes over control. So I want to go into this a little bit deeper, okay, so that you understand it a bit better because it's very important. Now, in order to understand this, I'm going to use an example that's easy to relate to, okay, and that is think of these archetypes as having a meeting inside your head, okay? So imagine that the archetypes sitting around a table and they're having a discussion with one another to see who's going to run the situation, okay? So let's take an example. Let's say you're meeting someone, okay? You meet someone and there's a bit of a connection, a bit of attraction, and you really like them, and this might now develop into something more than friendship, right? So now you're asking yourself, what is the next step? So now you're in this meeting with the archetypes and the lover steps up and stands up and expresses itself. And it says, you know what? You know what we're going to do? The best way to experience love is to throw yourself into it. Okay? No breaks. We just go. Vulnerability is key. Okay? Everybody for it? So the warrior side stands up and says, whoa, hold on a second. Last time we listened to you, and how did that end up? Oh yeah, I remember. They betrayed us and it sucked. So, we're not going to listen to you. No. Give me the chance. Let me run with this because last time didn't work out. So I've got a different approach, right? So maybe you're like, okay, fine. Let's give the warrior side, the chance. So you go into this relationship, but the warrior side will now be the dominant archetype at work when you're in this situation. That's pretty much like asking an army general on tips on how to be a softer person, okay? They're not going to be the experts. That's not their field of expertise. Now, the warrior is not the part of you that's good at relationships, okay? They're not. I spoke about that in earlier episodes. So you might have a situation where you're half in, half out with this relationship because you have a fear of vulnerability, you're very unsure, you might come across as not wanting to connect deeply with the person, which could cause issues, etc. Okay, so the warrior won that, you could say, that meeting, and that was the outcome. Another example could be, let's say, the magician and the warrior. So let's say you are facing a financial difficulty, some problem in your life. So the excessive and deficient part plays a big role in these meetings, right? So the part of you that's supposed to take action, face this thing with courage and, sort it out, is the warrior. So now we're sitting at the meeting and like, what am I going to do? I lost my job. I don't know what to do. So everybody looks at the warrior and we're like, okay, warrior side, what are we going to do? But your warrior is undercharged. It's a weak warrior side. So the warrior just kind of lounges back and the warrior's like, I don't know, man. I don't think I can do this. I just don't know. I think we're just going to crash and burn. So the magician looks at the warrior and is like, okay, well, clearly he's not going to be a lot of help. So let's take a different approach. Let me do it. I'll step up and I'll sort this out. So now you're using your magician side to solve this problem. Once again, that's not the right side for the job. You see, the magician's expertise is not doing things by taking action and getting it done physically. No, the magician's expertise lies within the mind, thinking and that kind of stuff. So what you would do is you would think about the problem. And I spoke about this in the other episodes, which leads to overthinking, overanalyzing and that kind of stuff. So the magician needs the warrior to bring the concepts and the ideas and all the thinking stuff to reality through action. But now, in this case, your warrior side is not of much help. It's too weak. It doesn't want to do anything. So now the magician is thinking, and there's a saying that says, thinking about a problem is not going to solve it. Action is going to solve it. So that would be the situation over there, you see. One more. Let's say, once again, you are in a relationship, okay? And the ruler part of you might be excessive. So the excessive sides of you usually dominates that meeting. Okay, now here's an example of how that would play out is, let's say the ruler part, you could say the tyrant side of you, you've got that tyrant nature because of the excessive, overly developed ruler side. So the ruler stands up and says, okay, you know what? How I'm going to get this person to stay in this relationship. I'm going to control them. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We're going to control them so that I've got control over them and they can't leave. Now the nurturer side of you wants to speak up, and the nurturer raises its hand. It's like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. So the ruler would say, hey, did we ask your opinion? Sit down, shut up, and we do what I say. Thank you, meeting adjourned, boom. Okay, so the ruler dominated that whole situation. So if that side is so excessive, that side would win most of the, you could say, the discussions. So the ruler would be the dominant archetype in almost everything you do because it keeps winning those discussions. A balanced person would be, okay, what's the best side for the job here? Let's check it out, and you'll have a more balanced approach. So you could say nurturer activities, you would say nurturer, you step up. Magician activities, magician, you step up. But if you don't have a balanced conversation in the meeting, if you want to put it that way, this doesn't happen. Imbalanced action happens, and that causes a lot of problems, right? So certain situations are, you could say, could be categorized as being the field of expertise of a certain archetype. Okay, so let's say there's a video. Doing this video is a magician activity. It's not a warrior activity. A warrior is not the part of me that I'm going to access to share knowledge and teach and think. And no, the warrior is the side where you get things done, the hard side of you, put it that way. So sometimes what happens, you can think of this in the following light. I'm going to give you a couple examples. So think of a play on stage, like a play with characters, and you change outfits, okay, when you're portraying different characters. So what happens is we kind of cycle through these characters as we playing the play of life, if you want to put it that way. You can also think of it as wearing different hats. Now you're wearing the warrior hat and then the magician hat, etc. Or, how I'm going to refer to it now, is think of it as different modes, different frames of mind, okay? So this is very important because what we do is we go into, for example, a warrior activity with the outfit of a magician. We are in magician mode, okay? Our whole state of mind is magician, but we're in a warrior situation. So the magician is not the best side of you to deal with this, okay? That's not the expertise of that side. So here's a practical example. Let's say it's time for you to go gym, okay? And you're on your way to the gym, and just before you left, you got into a big argument with a friend, okay? And as you're driving to the gym, you are tapping into your magician side to think about, what went wrong there? Do they have a point? You're thinking about this thing now the whole time, so you're trying to get insight. That's magician stuff. So you get to the gym and you get out and you're going to exercise now, which is a warrior activity. But what you don't realize is you are in your magician mode. So your training session feels terrible. You just feel like you can't train hard, you get tired quickly, and most people would use the terminology and say, my mind isn't here. I don't feel like I'm in the right zone, in the right mode. And you're kind of correct. You're not in the right state of mind. Okay, your mind is not there because you're in the wrong mode. Okay, in the play of life, you're supposed to have the outfit on and play the character of the warrior now, but you're not. You've got the magician outfit on and you're playing the character of the magician in a warrior scene. You see, that is how this works. And now you just feel like it doesn't gel. And then obviously you go home or whatever. And a lot of times this can happen subconsciously, sometimes consciously, but sometimes subconsciously. We don't realize that we changed outfits. We changed modes. So for example, let's take the gym thing again. You go to the gym, you started out with the warrior outfit. You're in the right state of mind, the right mode. And you exercise and maybe you get a text from someone. Someone said something. And as you read that text, your mind starts. So there you changed modes. Now you moved into magician. You see? Now you exercise again, but your mind is just not here. You struggle so hard just to get the workout done because you changed modes. But you didn't realize that, okay? You're still just like, yeah, I'm thinking, but you're trying to exercise. You haven't acknowledged the fact that you swapped outfits. in that instant, you see? So now with mental discipline and stuff, you must bring yourself back into the mode of a warrior. Otherwise you can't finish the task. And I've spoken to many people about this, and I've experienced this many times. When you look at a certain activity that you do, when you're in a different mindset, a different mode, it might seem like, wow, how did I do that? Like, how did I pull that off? But when you're in that mode, in that zone, it comes naturally. You do it quite well. So this is an example of how the different modes view things differently. So for example, if I'm in this video, what I'm doing now, and I'm doing this video, I'm sharing content or teaching or whatever, I need to be in my magician outfit because it's a magician role that I'm playing. If I come in here and I'm in my warrior mode, I'm not going to be very good at conveying the message, at connecting with the people I'm talking to. And you have to recognize that and say, hey, I'm in the wrong mode here. I have to change that. And that takes a bit of practice. It takes a bit of discipline and self-control, So that's how I want to explain how we go into these different modes. So what's also important is we can actually bring certain sides to the front. We can make certain sides dominant in certain situations by choice, and sometimes, once again, it can happen subconsciously. So let's say you have a properly developed lover, but you're in a relationship with someone. And when you look at this relationship, it would seem as if you've got a deficient lover, but you don't. I mean, if we look at most of your relationships, you've got a properly developed lover. You're a fun, loving person. But with this specific person, you're not like that. So how does that work? Well, what you're doing, and there are many reasons for this, but here's one explanation. What you could be doing is you could literally, with that meeting in your head, and the lover says, okay, I'll do it. You say, no, lover, wait a second. You sit down. I'm going to let the warrior take control of this one for me. Thank you. So what's happening, maybe in this relationship, the person really hurt you. So there's not a very good connection between the two of you. So what you do is you don't really trust them. You don't want to be vulnerable. Okay? Maybe you're angry at them or whatever the case is. So what you do is you bring your warrior side to the front when you're with them. But when you're with other people, you allow the lover to come out. You see? So we can actually push and pull these archetypes to the front, and we can pull them back. We can choose to tap into them. Now remember, if we have to tap into a side and it's not properly developed, we're going to bring it to the front and it's going to do a really crappy job. Okay, so for example, let's take the nurturer, seeing we're going to talk about it just now, is if you have to take care of someone, okay, and you say to the nurturer, okay, nurturer, you're up, do this. But your nurturer is very underdeveloped. You're not going to do a very good job. Okay, the qualities of the nurturer is not going to be present. Okay, so you're going to be kind of a bad nurturer. You have to develop that side of yourself. So what many people do is they kind of realize that. They're like, hey, if I'm going to bring the nurturer to the front here, that's not going to be a good thing because it's not going to be able to solve the problem. It's too underdeveloped. So what they do is they choose a different archetype. You see? So they would say, okay, I can't do the nurturer because that side of me is not so good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the lover to the front. So the lover will take charge and they're just going to make them feel good and make them happy and, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to look after them so much. Just keep them occupied and make them feel happy and make them feel like they have a good time. Okay. So the lover is running that, but you're not nurturing, if that makes sense. So we kind of default to archetypes that we feel would do a better job, where if we're more balanced, all the archetypes can do what they're supposed to do in a healthy way. So if we need to bring the nurturer and say, okay, nurturer, we're around the kids now. You have to nurture. You have to do what you need to do. It can do it, okay? If we have to go to work and we have to do certain things there, the warrior can step up and do it, you see? So if you're going into a negotiation and you have to have a hard discussion with people and, stand your ground a little bit. You can't just give them what they want. It's business negotiation, Now you go into that meeting with a nurturer dominant. So the nurturer won the meeting in your head and said, I want to do this a little bit. Let me do it. So you go into this meeting wearing a nurturer outfit. This is not the place for the nurturer. Wrong scene. Okay, you've got the wrong outfit on for the wrong scene here. So you go into this meeting and they start negotiating. And your nurturer side, which that's what the nurturer does, it cares more about other people than yourself, really. So the nurturer would say, hey man, that's a good deal for them. That's a good deal for them. Just give it to them. Agree on the terms. So you agree on the terms. And everybody else after the meeting is like, why did you do that? Why didn't you negotiate? There was an opportunity there where we could get more. That's a warrior thinking. The warrior would approach that meeting and say, what can I gain? You see, where the nurturer is like, what can you gain? You see, so they're thinking more about other people. So you had the wrong outfit on for the job. You see, and then you kind of messed it up. So we have to understand that certain situations require a certain archetype. And that's why we have to balance ourselves so that we can do that in a successful way, and a balanced and healthy way, obviously. The more balanced you are, the more the meeting in your head will be orderly and it won't be so chaotic. The more imbalanced you are, the more the meeting in your head is going to be a screaming match. All the archetypes are going to shout. It's just going to be chaotic. And we've all probably been there where you're like, there's so much noise in my head. That's the words people use. I don't even know what to do. I don't know what I must do. And it leads you to inaction and indecisiveness. You don't know what to do because the meeting in your head is chaotic. It's a screaming match. There's no order. So what you need to do is you need to learn how to create order in that meeting and say, okay, let's see. What are we going to do here? Who's going to do this job? And this brings me to the next point. Sometimes what happens is when we look at this whole meeting concept, and maybe you can relate to this. Today, I'm supposed to shoot a video. The magician has to do this. So I say, magician self, okay, magician side, let's go. But the magician is tired, man. I've called upon the magician for the last 5 days. It's really drained. So the magician might say, hey, man, can't we just take a break today? Let's do it tomorrow. I don't feel like I can do this today. And maybe that would manifest itself as you feeling like, I don't know if I can do it today, man. I feel drained. I just don't feel like I'm in my groove today. I feel off, in that department. But what we do is we're like, no. The video has to get done today, okay? So the magician's like, okay, I warned you. Okay, I'm running a little bit low on energy here, but whatever. So you do the video and it's not as good as you want. You make mistakes, etc. Because that side of you is still recharging. It's a bit depleted. Now, what we would do is, for example, if that's how you feel, you wouldn't have an issue in tapping into activities that require the other archetypes. Maybe exercising, you can do that. Maybe watching a cool movie or something, you can do that because that's a lover, Taking care of your kids, that's different archetypes, okay? Where the magician side is a bit depleted. It needs to recharge. So for that specific time and that specific activity, that side of you is not going to do its job as good as it usually does it, okay? Because it's a bit run down. So that's also important to understand. Sometimes we feel it. Sometimes we feel like, whoa, I don't have enough energy in that department of me to do this activity. And sometimes we're right. Sometimes that side needs to rest a little bit. We used it too much in the last couple of days or weeks or whatever the case is. So that's also important to understand. So now that we covered that, let's get into the nurturer itself. Now, the nurturer is the side of us that's a natural caregiver. It's the part of us that kind of thinks more about others than we think about ourselves. So if we've got a very strong nurturer and a weak warrior, we tend to be very self-sacrificing. We give, and we don't take care of ourselves. You see, where the warrior is a little bit more focused on me. That's why people with an excessive warrior tend to be quite selfish in how they do things. The nurturer is more about other people, making them happy, making them smile, making life better for them, you see? And the balanced nurturer understands that it's just as important for me to take care of myself. Because if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be in a good space. And if I'm not in a good space, I can't nurture. You see, that's very important, where the imbalanced nurturer will give. Or on the other side, if your nurturer is deficient, you become distant. I mean, that's the kind of parent who's, they're there, but they're kind of never there. They never reach out. They never kind of do their job and take care of you. They're just in the distance, That would be the imbalanced version of this. Now, the nurturer archetype shows up when you start a family. You've got children that you have to look after. Now the nurturer side would step up because that's a nurturer job. You see? Now, just back to that meeting thing, and sometimes we had a hard day at work, and we're so in the warrior mode because we've got so much on our plate. We've got so many things that has to get done. So we get home, our family is there and they're waiting for us to, do what we need to do in our family life. But we're not in the nurturer role now. Our minds are focused on the warrior because we've got work, we've got projects, it has to get done. So the way you're going to handle them is not like the nurturer would handle them because you're in warrior mode. And each archetype views things differently. Okay, so if we look at a situation like, I don't know, any type of situation. The warrior would ask questions if you're in warrior mode. The warrior would see it as, what can I achieve here? Okay? That would be the warrior's thinking. Okay? If you're in that dominant side of you, that side is at the front. The magician would think, does this make logical sense? Okay? What's the long term implication of this whole situation? That's how the magician would see it. The lover would see, would I feel happy about this? Will this make me feel good? You see, the nurturer would view it and say, how will this affect others? Will it make them happy? You see how each archetype would see it differently. And that's why these kind of meetings in our head, it's kind of just a metaphor, but this meeting in our head, we need the different perspectives from the different archetypes. So if they're deficient, they don't kind of raise their opinion. You know, if you've got a deficient nurturer, that side of you is just like, whatever, man, you guys do what you want to do. You know, it doesn't really raise their opinion. Where if you've got a deficient ruler, for example, that has to stand their ground and make decisions, a deficient ruler would just literally be like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. You know, if you ask yourself, what decision are you going to make? And you're like, I don't know. You're indecisive. That's signs of a weak ruler. The ruler side that's supposed to make the decision and stand by it, that side of you doesn't really want to make a decision because it's too weak to do it. You see, so it's important. So anyway, back to the nurturer. So the nurturer comes into play when we take care of people and we want to see people smile and have a good life. This is why it's another archetype, just like the ruler, that plays a massive role in parenting. Because the ruler must take control, make decisions, create order. The nurturer is the caregiver. Okay, the part that wants to nourish things. That's why the caregiver concept, this whole nurturer archetype, is often depicted as Mother Nature, you know, that nurtures plants, nurtures animals, heals nature. That's why the nurturer archetype is also the side of us that heals, that brings healing to people. We don't want to see people suffer and in pain. That's that side of you, the side of you that's got extreme compassion for all living things. That's the nurturer part. So our nurturer side is the side that wants to heal. You know, when you see someone in pain, you can't just throw a blind eye to it. You need to reach out and say, I can't let that person suffer like that. I need to alleviate their suffering. That's the caregiver, nurturer side of us, you see. Now, if that becomes excessive, you know, we give too much. So for example, back to that meeting in our heads. So you're in a situation, someone keeps leeching on you, okay? So maybe, for example, they keep using you as a doormat. They know that you're giving, they know that you're soft, and this is one of the dark sides of the nurturer side of us, is the nurturer side is extremely soft. It's a very caring, loving individual. So they tend to enable bad and weak behavior. They kind of enable it because they just give, and they've got compassion and empathy. So they're too soft in that department. So in this meeting, someone might use you in terms of getting money from you all the time. You know, they just ask for money, ask for money, ask for money. Now, this might be the 20th time they've asked for money, okay? And you're starting to tap into your reserves. But the nurturer inside of you is still soft. It says, just give it to them. They really need it. They really need it. You know, that side. So in this meeting, the issue comes up and the nurturer says, hey guys, let's just give it to them. You know, they really need that money. You know, they've got a family. They've got stuff to pay. And if the other archetypes can't balance that out, you're just going to be a doormat. People are going to kind of just suck you dry financially. You're just going to give, and you're going to destroy yourself in the process. Where someone like the warrior inside of you must stand up in that meeting and say, wait a second, okay? They're using you, okay? They're using you. Can't you see that? Focus on yourself a little bit. You need money for your survival, all right? So it's time to be hard now. Put your foot down, stand strong, and don't get pushed over. That's the warrior voice. But if the warrior is deficient, that warrior won't do that. The warrior would just sit back and be like, do what you want. And you're going to keep doing what you're doing. You see? You're never going to have the courage to stand up and say, no more, no more. You see? So that's how these archetypes work together. Now, when it comes to compassion, love is inclusive, and the absence of love is exclusive. Now, what I mean by that is this. Whenever we see something as an extension of ourselves, as part of us, we can't help but care about it. Because hurting that thing would be hurting ourselves, because we see it as part of us. Okay? So let's use an example. Let's say someone drops off a car at your house and asks you, can you just take care of my car? And you're like, sure, just park it there next to the house. It's cool. Okay. Now, most people would do this. That's not my car, so it's not really my problem. So all I'll do is I'll do what needs to be done. I'll make sure it's safe. But maybe you'll take extra care of your car, wash it every now and then. You won't really take care of theirs because it's not your problem. You see, it's not yours. But if you adopt that car as like your own, you're like, it's just like my car. If I had to drop my car off somewhere, I would want that person to take good care of it. So therefore I will. You see it as an extension of you. You see it as part of you, and therefore you take care of it. It's the same like a tree. You see a tree or a plant. If you look at that plant or tree as not being a living thing, it's separate from you, it's got nothing to do with you, you're very hard towards it. To burn it to the ground has got no issue for you because you don't see a reflection of yourself within that. But if you had to believe that that tree is a living being just like you, it's alive, okay? It's going to be way harder for you to do something to it because you see a bit of yourself in that tree. You're like, hey, my essence is pretty much the same as a tree's essence, and that prevents me from hurting it. You see, same with animals. If you see that spark of life when you look into an animal's eyes and you see they've got these emotions and feelings that goes with them, and you see the dog can get excited, they can be scared, they can be sad, they can be down, and you see, hey, there's some similarities between me and this animal. Then you form a connection. You're like, I don't want to hurt this animal because hurting the animal would be like hurting me. And that's how this whole compassion thing plays out. We see a lot of ourselves in others. And by bringing you peace, happiness, joy, and healing, we bring it to ourselves as well. And that's how the nurturer views things. Now, I want to finish it off by making this statement. When we have a strong nurturer, we've got the ability to look at people and see what do they need. What are their needs? What do they really desire? What must I do to really nurture them and give them what they need? And not what can I give them because I think they need that. This happens so many times. If you're imbalanced in this department, you might go to someone and you give them gifts, you surprise them all sorts of things, flowers or whatever. And in your head, you're like, I'm nurturing you, I'm giving you things, I'm trying to make you happy. But what you fail to understand, because other parts of you are not properly developed, you don't have the insight to see what that person really needs. You're giving maybe your child, you're giving them toys and buying them things and taking them to the movies or whatever. But that's not what the child wants. Maybe the child wants emotional connection. Just making them feel that you're there for them and understand them and know that they also go through ups and downs. Maybe that's what they want. But because you're out of touch with certain parts of yourself, you don't realize that. You don't see that. So you're nurturing in the wrong departments. You're giving them what they don't want. You're giving them what you think they want instead of learning to look at it from their eyes and see, oh, this is what they want. And this happens in relationships. You give your partner things they don't want. They don't feel loved because you don't love them in the right way. And in order to do that, we have to have a strong lover. We have to have a good magician that can develop that insight. But especially the lover, because the lover feels the feelings of others and looks at it from their emotional perspective, and that's very important. So this is just part one. In part two, I'm going to go way more in depth with the nurturer because I'm going to talk about the deficient and the excessive, and I'll touch on the balanced one as well. So pretty much, I wanted to get the whole meeting concept across here and give you a quick introduction to the nurturer. And then in part two, we'll go into this in depth.